They saw a signboard, which made them stop. The true Church of Christ, meet here. Hey! We are Church of Christ, and the true Church of Christ. No, this one we have to investigate. They went there, and they saw a young prophet. It was a spiritual church, what we call Indigenous Independent Church. They have no headquarters, it was just African, what we call spiritual churches. And this young prophet had started his church, which he called the true Church of Christ. So they decided that they will do public preaching in that village. And they went to call the prophet if he will interpret. He was about the only one who could speak English in the village. So Siwaha will be preaching, and the prophet will be interpreting. And the prophet realized, the thing the people are saying is not what he has been teaching. So he said, no, he wants to learn more. They engaged him, and they continued their journey. Within 2 weeks of their meeting the young prophet, the prophet, his wife, and his daughter, who was less than 2 years old, the three of them were on their way to Nigeria, to the Church of Christ School of Preaching. Because Siweho had returned to Nigeria, where he was in eastern Nigeria. And this young prophet was called Samuel Boahen Obey, popularly known as S.B. Obey. He was a young prophet. His church was called the True Church of Christ, before he met Opongedu and Siweho. And he wanted to learn more. He left his village, he left his church, took his wife and his daughter, and they went to Nigeria, traveling by road to Lagos, and then from Lagos to eastern Nigeria, to where these Americans were, to go and study the Bible more. So he went to the school of preaching there. Whilst he was in Nigeria, on 18th July, this is May, they met him in May, so 2 weeks, maybe early June, he went to Nigeria. 18th July 1961, John Opongedu died. But before he died, he had planted 4 churches. He had established 4 churches. But he died on 18th July 1961. When Samuel Boahen Obeng and his wife and daughter went to Nigeria, he was not baptized at the time. It was in Nigeria that he got baptized. But because he already had his own church and he knew the Bible, when he went there, they added him to the 2nd year class. Because it was 2 years school of preaching, where they give you diploma in biblical studies. But this man was already a pastor, was a prophet. He knew his Bible. So they were not going to start him in year 1. They just added him to year 2. Then after classes, he will go to the missionary's house and they will teach him privately. They call it accelerated instruction. So apart from him joining the class, after classes, he will go to the missionaries and he will learn from them. And so by December, when they were graduating, so he was there for only about 6 months. And he graduated in December and came back. Meanwhile, when the broom, while Siweho was coming to Ghana and they went to Anansu and they met this young prophet, when the broom had gone to America, remember the 2 names, the 2 missionaries who came. So when the broom had gone to America, and he went around churches saying that, look, a new work has started in Ghana. And there's an old man there who is holding the fort. We need missionaries to go to Ghana. But we are in Nigeria. We can't go and live in Ghana. So he was going around campaigning for Ghana. And he found 2 young men, Jerry Reynolds and Dewin Davenport, who said they will go to Ghana. And they were sponsored by 2 churches. Jerry Reynolds was sponsored by Cedars Church of Christ in Wilmington, Delaware, to go to Ghana as a missionary. And Dwayne Davenport was sponsored by Madison Church of Christ in Madison, Tennessee, to go to Ghana. So these two decided that they will go to Ghana. And the plan was for them to go to Ghana in August and come and meet John Opongedu and work with Opongedu. But before they got here in August, Opongedu had died in July. And they didn't know anybody in Ghana. The man we are coming to has died. What do we do? So from America, they flew to Nigeria, eastern Nigeria, and went to stay there with the missionaries to learn about African culture, because they have never been to Africa before. And they were coming to meet Opongedu. Opongedu is dead. So they went there and they stayed in eastern Nigeria with the Nigerian missionaries, learning about Africa and all that. Meanwhile, who was in eastern Nigeria attending Bible school? Samuel Obin was there with his wife and daughter. So Obin told him, oh, me, I will graduate in December. But when I come, I go to Ashanti region. That's where I'm from. I'm not from Central region. I'm going to Ashanti region. So if you want to work with me, then I will be going to Ashanti region. And the capital is Kumasi. So the missionaries decided, instead of coming to Central region, they will go to Ashanti region. So they arrived at Aflao border because they drove from eastern Nigeria. On 10th October, that's when they entered Ghana. 10th October 1961 was when they crossed Aflao border and entered Ghana. And then they drove all the way to Kumasi to go and settle there. So December, when Obin also finished and graduated from Nigeria, the Bible college there, then he joined them in Kumasi. And that is how the spread of Churches of Christ in Ghana started from Kumasi. And that is a story on its own. The missionaries decided that they will follow the American model in Nigeria by establishing a school of preaching. So they established the Kumasi School of Preaching, sometimes called the Ghana School of Preaching. Eventually, the name became Ghana Bible College. But in those days, some call it Ghana Bible College, some call it Ghana School of Preaching, some call it Kumasi School of Preaching. So the house they rented in Kumasi, the garage, is where they started the school with 6 students. There were actually 5 students. And Samuel Obin was a student and a teacher at the same time. Because he had spent only about 6 months in Nigeria. So he came to join them again in the garage of the house where the missionaries had started. So in 1962 was when they started the first school of preaching, which is Ghana Bible College. Their goal was that they would train local men. They themselves cannot go to the villages and baptize in large numbers. They didn't speak the language. And you go to a village, there will be nobody speaking English. So they would train local men. Then the local men would do the evangelism. That way the church will rapidly expand. That's why they established the Bible College. The first 6 students were Samuel Obin, who was a student stroke a teacher. Then Emmanuel Esiama, who after graduation went to Takoradi to start the Church of Christ in Takoradi in the Western region. John Appiah, S.A.O. Young, the father of Labi Young, former preacher of Nkoko Church of Christ, S.A.O. Young. By the way, S.A.O. Young was the first convert of the missionaries when they got to Ghana. When they came in 1961, the first person they converted was S.A.O. Young. Then A.A. Ajimai, and then Emmanuel Alfred Asante. And most of them were prophets and pastors in spiritual churches who were converted. And then S.A. Young, for example, was a catechist in the Methodist Church when he was converted. And so they were the first 6 students. Asante, Emmanuel Alfred Asante, who died about 3 months ago. The funeral was held about last month. Was the last of them. So the last of the 6 are gone. So they were training them, and then they would plant churches. In 1963, July, the Reynolds, they assigned a 2-year contract to come to Ghana. So after 2 years, they came in 61. In July 63, the Reynolds left. When they left, then the Citizens of Christ sent another family, Harodier. The Harodier family came in September to replace the Reynolds. Then the following year, 1964, Davenport and his family also returned. The problem they were having at that time, according to them, was that the Nkrumah government was becoming more anti-American and moving towards the east. Nkrumah was moving more towards the east. The Eastern Bloc. No, those days there was Russia and America, the Cold War. And Nkrumah was moving from the west, where he had gone to school, and was now more towards Marxism and all of that, moving towards the east. And so they were a bit hostile to Americans. Sometimes there will be rows and demonstrations against America and all of that. And so they felt unsafe. They felt insecure. But their time had lapsed anyway, the time they agreed, so they went. Then in May 1965, the Deer family, the family of Harold Deer, who came in 63, also 2-year contract, they also left. So there was no missionaries in Ghana in 65. And the fear was that the quota or the license that Ghana government had given to Church of Christ will be revoked. Because it has been given to the missionaries. So if there's no missionary, then the Church of Christ mission will lose its license. And therefore, there was the need to send somebody quickly. So the Davenport, who had left, was sent back. That if there is no missionary in Ghana, the Ghana government will withdraw the Church of Christ license. And then once they withdraw it and they are anti-America, that is the end. So the Davenport, who had left, came back. But by 1965, when Harold Deer and his family left, you can say that the Church of Christ had been established in Ghana. So that's the first phase of the establishment of the Church of Christ. From that time, the church began to grow rapidly. How did this happen? When the Davenport came back, because they were afraid they would lose their Church of Christ license, he started radio broadcasts. And Samuel Obey was the featured speaker. And the radio was not FM. It was shortwave. It could go all the way to Ibadan. So people in all of West Africa could hear him preaching. And the radio broadcast also helped in spreading the gospel. It was sponsored by World Radio in Monroe, Louisiana. And the program was called Witness to West Africa. Then, a certain man, preacher called Charles Scott. You have to remember that name. Charles Scott was a preacher who was from Scranton, Pennsylvania. And he didn't want to come and live in Ghana as a missionary. He only wanted to come for short visits, preach and go back. Short visit, preach and go back. Now, what he did was he recruited American preachers, Church of Christ preachers. He said he was looking for zealous, sacrificing preachers who can endure hardship. If you can't endure hardship, you don't come. He wants zealous, sacrificing preachers who can endure hardship and can preach powerfully to crowds from 200 to 2,000 people without a PA system. Like on the day of Pentecost. That's the kind of people you have to be able to stand and speak. Anytime the people want to hear the gospel, you must preach. Because it was for only 2 months, many preachers agreed to come. So they will come with him, and when they come, they will go from village to village doing public preaching. Anywhere you can gather a crowd, preach to them. Anywhere you can gather a crowd, preach to them. But who was going to interpret for them? Scott's first trip to Ghana was 1967. And in that same year, in December, Dewey Davenport, who had come quickly, had to go back because his second coming was unplanned. It was out of fear that the license would be drawn. So he came and he left. Then the Seeded Church of Christ sent Gerald Frugier. Gerald, his wife was called Faye. Gerald and Faye Frugier. And they came as resident missionaries. Frugier's focus was on the Bible school. He wasn't so much focused on going to the villages and all. His focus was on preacher training. So whilst he was training the preachers, when Charles Scott, and the American preachers come, he will break the school for 2 months. There will be no classes at Ghana Bible College. He will pair the preachers with the preacher students. American preacher, Ghana preacher student. American preacher, Ghana preacher student. And then they will go to the villages. And for 2 months, you will see a Ghanaian school of preaching student and an American preacher, who the Ghanaian was acting as interpreter. And they went in villages, living together. So there was a bond of friendship among them. And they would interpret. And that led to a lot of baptisms and planting of churches. Now, when the 2 men were up and the Americans were going, maybe they've gone to a certain village to plant a church. They were going. Then they'll be concerned, hey, what will happen to this church? Then the plan was, okay, send money so that the preacher student can go and visit the church you planted every weekend. And so they'll go to classes up to maybe Thursday. By 12 o'clock Friday at the West, they have closed. Then the preacher student on the weekends will go to these villages. And the American who came will go to their churches, give a report. And then they will send money to the preaching student. That is how foreign support started. Because I was working with you for 2 months. I know you. You are my friend. We went to the villages together. You interpreted for me. Now we've planted a church here at Amasamai. We planted a church at Pokwase. So I will leave the church with you. Then when I go to America, my church, because I'm a preacher in the local church in America, my church will, so that every weekend, after classes on Friday, Saturday you are at Amasamai, and Sunday you are at Pokwase. That is how it is. So now the American churches were sending support to these local preachers who were in the schools of preaching. This made the churches grow very rapidly because the local preacher had to send reports. And so they had to work, baptize people so they can send reports. So that the next year, when the preacher is coming, he will come and see that the churches have grown. So that led to a lot of expansion. Throughout Ghana. So the churches began to spread. But they were mainly in the Ashanti and eastern regions of Ghana. But a student of Ghana Bible College who graduated in 1968 was sent by Frugier, the director, to go to Accra on weekends and start the church in Accra. That was Daniel Ampedue Siama. Yes, I know he's Kojo Siama, Kojo Ampedue Siama. He goes by the acronym Dankwama. So he was sent by Frugier to come to Accra and start the church. Frugier will give him money to travel on weekends whilst he was a student at Ghana Bible College. So when he graduated in 1968, he had to come to Accra and work in Accra. After that, missionaries who came didn't go to Kumasi again. They stayed in Accra. So George Bosman, Tom Dockery, and Carol Barnett. George Bosman, Tom Dockery, Carol Barnett, and other American missionaries were now missionaries in Accra. So there were a set of missionaries in Kumasi, a set of missionaries in Accra. And they also followed the same pattern. Let us start a school of preaching to train local men. So in 1971, the Accra School of Preaching was started. And through the students of the Accra School of Preaching, Southern Ghana was evangelized. Because when you are training at Accra School of Preaching, you'll be given a place. As a man can say, you go there. Kade, you go there. This, you go there. So men like Seto Sain Labi, Wilson Maglo, and a few others, later on, the Kujua Kwabeni and others, were all students at the School of Preaching who were sent. Akwabeni was sent to Begro and others. And so that is how the churches spread in Southern Ghana, through the Accra School of Preaching, and especially the work of Daniel Ampedu Esiama. How did the churches spread in the north? Even though the Church of Christ started in Northern Ghana in the 1960s, by Openyi Fosu and his family. And Openyi Fosu happens to be the father of Elder Kingsley Du. They went to Tamale and they started the church there. But in the 60s, but by 1980, there were only 2 churches in Tamale and Bogatanga. Clearly some 15 to 20 years after. Because no serious effort were made by churches of Christ to enter in Ghana. So by 1980, there were only 2 churches. But the church had grown in Ashanti region, Eastern region, Southern Ghana, Western region, and Greater Accra, Volta, and all of that. And then it had gone to the Bono Ahafu area. But it couldn't go beyond that. It was only Tamale and Bogatanga. Then, in 1976, there was a school of preaching called International School of Evangelism. They were in Michigan. They were sponsored by the University Drive Church of Christ in Pontiac, Michigan. The director of the School of Preaching got in contact with a preacher called Christian Insoa. And he said that they were training preachers in America, but they wanted to give them missionary experience. Or you are in America, you go to school, you graduate, you're a preacher, you've never done mission work. So they want to send them to Ghana. So Christian Insoa can lead them to do mission work in Ghana and give them missionary experience. Within 4 years that the school was sending students, these are American students, Christian Insoa had led them to establish 24 churches in Southern Ghana. 24 churches in 4 years. Because that was part of their training to become preachers, mission experience. So it was Christian Insoa who suggested to the president of the International School of Evangelism, the director of the School of Preaching there, his name was Nolan Crawford, that look, Southern Ghana, there are a lot of churches, but there are no churches in Northern Ghana. So instead of your students coming to work here, in 4 years we planted 24 churches. Why don't you let me take them to the north to go and do mission work there instead of Southern Ghana? So it was agreed. And now the American students will go with Christian Insoa to the north. And that is how the churches spread in the north. The beginning. And so the University Drive Church of Christ asked that Christian Insoa will become their local missionary to Northern Ghana. And they requested him to consider resigning from the company he was working with in Tema to become a full-time preacher. He was preacher for the Vertical Center Church of Christ, or the Church of Christ in Tema. But he was working and preaching. But from 1st June 1982, he had to resign and focus on full-time ministry. And one of his work was northern Ghana. He'll be a missionary to northern Ghana. It was through his efforts, going there with students from the International School of Evangelism, that resulted in the planting of many churches there. Then he also traveled there with Dan McVeigh, who was a young American missionary who had come to live in Accra in the early 80s. And they planted a lot of churches there. By June 1985, Churches of Christ had been established in 4 distinct tribal languages in northern Ghana, among the Dagombes, the Chokosi, the Kanjaga, and the Frafra. By 1985. Remember, by 1980, there were only 2 churches in the north. But by 1985, 5 years, they have planted a lot of churches in these 4 tribal groups: Dagomba, Chokosi, Kanjaga, and Frafra. Then, on one of their visits, Christians who were American preachers, especially a particular preacher called Joseph Tilton, they went to a village to preach, and they saw that all the men were down with guinea worm. And guinea worm, when it enters you, can come out anywhere it wants. It can come through your neck, through your leg, everywhere, with very painful sores. It was the farming season, but they couldn't go to farm because of guinea worm. And the Americans had never seen anything like that before. So yeah, what is guinea worm? How did they get it? They said the water they are drinking is pond water, the dry season. And the cows go to the same water, they drink, and then they ease themselves in the water, and then the human beings go and fetch the water and drink, and then they get guinea worm. So this Joseph Tilton, who had been sent by the Traversy Church of Christ, went and told his people that, hey, the thing I've seen in Ghana, worms coming out of human beings. So how do we solve the problem? Oh, if we can drill wells for them. The wells are not contaminated, but the surface water is contaminated. But if we can drill wells, then we will solve the problem of guinea worm. So this Traversy Church of Christ, now listen carefully. They were a church of less than 100 members. Traversy Church of Christ in Michigan was less than 100 members. They raised money from America, and they raised millions of dollars to drill water wells. That is what brought about the rural water development project of Churches of Christ, drilling water wells in northern Ghana. When they went to drill the water wells, and the people got good water, good, clean drinking water, then they'll say, but you people, who are you? Why have you brought us water? They say, oh, we are Christians. And the God we serve says we should love our neighbor. That is why we saw you were suffering. You didn't have good water. That's why we brought you water. Say, hey, tell us about this, your God. Which God is that? Then they'll preach the gospel to them. They say, oh, we'll be baptized. So they were baptized. They will baptize the whole village. They were baptizing villages, planting churches. So it became necessary that they needed to get preachers to follow up after the water well drilling. But the water well drillers were Christians, but they were mechanics and drillers, and they were not preachers. So now a team of preachers was formed. Isaac Pakwadote and others who will go, and after they have drilled the well, they will go with the gospel. Samson La and a few others. Because of this, the churches grew rapidly. For any community they send the water, they will not preach, they will just drill the water and then they will go. Almost 100%. The chief will send that they should call them back. And they will come. And the chief will ask them, why did you come to give us this water? They'll say, oh, our God told us to give you the water. Tell us about your God. Then they will call the evangelist, Samson La. And Samson La could speak about 10 languages in the northern Ghana. And Isaac Gadote and a few others whose names don't come readily to my mind. They will go and follow up and preach and baptize. So Churches of Christ started growing rapidly in the north as a result of that. Another factor that helped Churches of Christ to grow rapidly was relief aid. You see, in the late 1970s, things were hard in Ghana. Remember the days of Kalabule, the days of cheat. You need a cheat to go and import or even to go and sell. I've forgotten what we call that thing. But things were hard in Ghana. The shops were running dry. Even sardine, you have to do connection. Cloth, you have to do connection. Ghana was hard. But oil had been discovered in Nigeria. So many Ghanaians left for Nigeria to go and work. Stories are told about Ghanaians who go to Nigeria and they say, well, there's no work. We are only building this building. If you're a mason, then we'll give you work. They say, oh yes, I'm a mason. They've never done masonry work before. So when they take the mortar and they paste it on the wall, then the mortar will fall down. They take it, they paste, then they'll use their hand to hold the mortar. So the mortar will stay on the wall. The economy in Ghana was bad, but the economy was booming in Nigeria. And so many Ghanaians, teachers and workers went to Nigeria. Then, in January of 1983, specifically on 19th January 1983, the Nigerian president, Shehu Shagari, accused the immigrant workers who had come to Nigeria that they were taking jobs away from Nigerians. Nigerians want work to do. When you go, Ghana man is working there. When you go somewhere from Niger, from Cameroon, from Togo, from Benin, say, why are you taking work away from Nigerians? Okay, I give you 2 weeks. All immigrants, go back to your country. 2 weeks. If you don't go, you will see Nigerian pepper. So those from Mali went, those from Senegal went, those from Togo went, those from Benin went. But the majority, 90% of the illegal immigrants were from Ghana. You are one of them. Where who have money? Where who have money paying? So they had to pack within 2 weeks. And they put their things in these bags, check bags. That's why the bags are called Ghana Must Go. When they were going, they didn't have trans, they didn't have to put tomato, they had suitcase. So they took these jute bags, put their things in, carried it, and said, Omo Ghana, make you go now, Ghana Must Go. That's how we got the bag, Ghana Must Go. Now we call it a Fiora Swami, because we don't like the name Ghana Must Go. So Ghana was suffering. And then there was drought. 82, no rains. 83, no rains. And then there was bushfires. So one, the economy is bad. You go to GNTC, nothing. Kingsway, nothing. UTC, nothing. It's just shelves, empty shelves. Then military coup. Ekufu overthrow a champion. Rawlings overthrow Ekufu. And then Jiwa tries to overthrow Rawlings. And curfew. All these things are happening at the same time. Political instability. Empty shelves. Ghana didn't have foreign reserve. Remember, the champion said, we won't pay our foreign debt. So nobody will give Ghana a loan. So Ghana was hard pressed. Then the rains didn't fall. The farms failed. The small grain we planted, it didn't grow. Then the bushfires came to burn everything. And we were suffering. Then all of a sudden, here comes 2 million Ghanaians coming to Ghana. Hey, we inside the country, we are suffering. And 2 million Ghanaians were coming. Newsweek magazine called it the cruel exodus. It said it was the largest forced march in Africa in recent memory. Ghana was the hardest hit of all, forced to absorb at least 1 million returnees. The exiles increased Ghana's population by 10% overnight. Within 2 weeks, Ghana's population had grown by 10%. Because 2 million Ghanaians returned home. And they came, we were hungry, then they came to join us. Ghana was on its knees, depleting food stocks, leaving Ghana pleading for emergency supplies. This is Newsweek, unquote. Ghana was begging for emergency supplies. No food. We are hungry. And you have also come. Trouble. So Ghana was on its knees begging. When Ghana begged, the Churches of Christ responded. They said, we will help you. And so Churches of Christ in America started collecting food items, medicines, toothpastes, and all kinds of things, shoes, Bibles, hymn books. That's sacred selection. Typewriters. All these things. American churches were collecting them. There was a church in West Monroe, Louisiana, USA, called the Whites Ferry Road Church of Christ. They were the collecting point. And churches from all over America would send money there. Who said there's no central fund? It was that many people survived. They created a fund outside the church fund. The church owned local funds. They created separate fund. And Church of Christ in all over America sent money there. Sent food items there. There was a central fund in America. And that is what they sent to Ghana. Containers were sent to Ghana. By the time, within 2 years, a total of $5 million in relief had been sent to Ghana from the Churches of Christ in America. $5 million of relief items had been sent to Ghana. And they came, and Churches of Christ had to share. So the churches, the preachers came together, formed committees. Committee that will go to the harbor and receive the items. Committee that will follow the items to the various places and make sure it's been given to church leaders. And in every place, Kumasi, Koforodia, wherever, there will be a committee there to receive and distribute. Committee that will sit and plan. And they did not come from one congregation. They planned so that the food and the relief item will not go to only Church of Christ members. Some were sent to secondary schools where there was no food. Some were sent to hospitals where if you are sick, your family in the house cannot eat. You think they will cook and bring you in the hospital? People were dying of hunger. The worst hit were the prisoners. We are free. We can't get food. You are in prison. You drink water until you die. But the Churches of Christ will send food to the prisons. Very well organized relief effort. And because of that, like in the Bible, when Jacob heard that there was food in Egypt, he sent his sons, go to Egypt and buy us some food, otherwise we'll die. People said, go to Church of Christ and get us some food, otherwise we die. So people were coming to Church of Christ, and the numbers were swelling. Even when you say, praise the Lord, you say, I'll baptize. So the numbers were growing. And so the food and relief aid led to a rapid expansion of Churches of Christ. Rapid growth of Churches of Christ. Because that is where, if you want food, if you want toothpaste, that is where you go. I remember my local church, Oforikrom Church of Christ at the time. This is just by the way, it's not part of this. Our preachers, Frank Norte of blessed memory and YB in Cancer of blessed memory, came to church. After worship service, they said, next week, a dentist is coming to this church to treat people with cavities and tooth problems. So all those who have caca and tooth problems, let us know. So a few people who had raised their hand, they wrote their names. The following week, they came to church with toothpaste. Said, this is the dentist. We didn't have enough for every member of the church. So we had to find a way to distribute it. So we are going to give it to those who have toothache and tooth problems. So here's your dentist. Here's your dentist. Here's your dentist. That is called wisdom. That is how they distributed the toothpaste from America. The churches grew. Fortunately, after the food aid stopped and the relief aid stopped, the people still remained. Those who had come because of the food, they remained. And so the churches actually doubled within a space of 3 to 4 years. Another thing that helped rapidly, especially in the 80s, was World Bible School. World Bible School is a correspondence course. And many young men and women, especially those in upper primary and then there was no JHS, upper primary and secondary school, were involved in World Bible School correspondence courses. There were a few adults, but most of them were students. And what World Bible School did was that they would send World Bible School teachers from America to come and do campaign. And they would send letters ahead to their students that in the month of June, American World Bible School teachers are coming to Ghana. If you want to see a real World Bible School teacher, American teacher, then meet them at these places. Koforodia, in front of this place. Jackson Park. Suhum, here. Nkoko, here. Kumasi, here. Sunyani, here. Accra, here. Mamprobi, so they will give the date and then the venue. So when you get the letter and you are in Accra, they say circle near post office or Mamprobi or here. Then you decide where you want to go. And when you go, you see a real American with a blue shirt, with the logo, WBS, with a globe on it, with a chat, a few minutes with somebody who loves you, a few minutes with someone who... By the time you finish that lesson, you baptize. So this World Bible School follow-up teachers who came to Ghana also led to many baptisms and an expansion of the church. One thing they did was during the daytime, some of them would be stationed where they had advertised that they would be there. Others would go house to house with their interpreters, preaching and distributing flyers, inviting people to public preaching in the evening. In Kumasi, the public preaching was held at Abbey's Park. So all over the city of Kumasi, come to Abbey's Park, come to Abbey's Park. So in the evening, thousands of people would gather at Abbey's Park. And then the gospel will be preached from a big stage that had been set. And that night, hundreds, there will be in this bone shaker, Trotro bone shaker, from Abbey's Park, which is in Ashtown, to Bomso. There was a fish pond there, and they were baptized. So the work of World Bible School, especially the follow-up, also led to a lot. The follow-up campaigns led to a lot of expansion. After the food aid and the frenzy of the World Bible School follow-up campaigns, by 1987, the churches had doubled in number. And the problem was, where were they meeting? How do we make sure they don't go? These members we've gotten. And many churches were meeting in schools. And the government said, you churches, you go to our schools and you are spoiling our furniture. You go to a P4 classroom, small chair, small table, and you see a 40-year-old man sitting on this chair, breaking the chairs. Government said, everybody move out of public schools. Like Shegu Shagari drove out the Ghanaians out of Nigeria. When government drove churches out, the churches of Christ were the number one affected. Because these churches had no plan for church buildings. Almost all their churches, about 95%, were meeting in school classrooms, public school classrooms. And so they were seriously affected. That is when it hit them that we have to buy land. And that even though the church is not the building, the church is the people. The people need a place. And in June and July, a mango tree will not do. Because God will send the rains. You need a building. So from 87, the churches started to realize that they needed to buy land. So the focus was moved slightly away from evangelism, baptism. That was the early 80s. Towards the end of the 80s, the churches were already full. They didn't need to evangelize. Now the focus on let's buy land. Let's put up a building. Let's buy land. Let's put up a building. And so the church began what we call the consolidation period. When now they were buying land. In the past, God is a spirit. Anywhere you can worship God. Under a tree, it's okay. The church is not a building. We are the church, the people. Why are you wasting God's money to buy land? For what? But towards the end of the 80s, they realized that It is not God who is going to worship. He is a spirit, but we are human beings. We are flesh and blood. And we need a place to worship. So now the focus was on that. How do we consolidate all these members we have gotten in the last few years? Then the churches realized that, well, we have to also start schools. The way the Catholics say, give me a child before the age of 7, and I'll make him a Catholic for life. And we can't convert them. And the way the Presbyterians are doing, we too, let our children, we don't want them to go to Presby school. We want them to, so let's also start. So some started, let's start a school. Let's start a school. Koforudia, Old Estate, in Koko, they were the first two to start. And then other people got on. So now projects began. When the food aid and the relief items came, it came with medicines, with medical equipment, typewriters and things. And so the need to start a clinic also came. And that is how the Church of Christ Mission Clinic started in Bomso. Because we have so much medicines and equipment, we had to start something on our own. So some of the projects were the Church of Christ Mission Clinic in Bomso. Later one came to Yendi. Then the Rural Water Project I talked about. Village of Hope Orphanage came. Rural Evangelism Development. The Church of Christ Development Fund. That was by some churches in Accra. They said, let's come together and form a fund so that we will be buying land. Because what was happening is that by the time a neighborhood was well saturated with people, when the Church of Christ got there, the land is finished. And the remaining land to buy is so expensive, they can't buy. But immediately they see that there is a community somewhere, the Presbyterian will go and buy 4 acres. The Catholics will buy 20 acres. They don't do small things. The Anglican will go and buy 2 acres. But Church of Christ will not buy anything. Now, when the Kwabenya has become a big area, the Church of Christ will go to Kwabenya. And the price they will quote them, they can't pay. So, a group of church members in Accra said, let's form the Church of Christ Development Fund. Every week or every month, let the congregations give money to this fund. We are going to use this fund to buy land in undeveloped areas. So by the time development gets the Church of Christ, we also have land. So Asaleja, they bought a big land over there. I don't know if they'll be able to protect that land. It was really huge. But it fizzled out because people didn't continue with the zeal. And then in those same times, deaf ministries also came about. Other ministries also sprang up as a result of the consolidation, like prison ministries. The Winneba Church, the Brother Otu, they started prison ministries. In Sawom, Brother Nyame and others started prison ministries. And prison ministries began. Hospital ministries. Samuel Oseyong and I've forgotten the name. Osekumi, Edwin Osekumi. And then there's another preacher, I've forgotten his name. Opon. They were doing Kolebu, Kaneshi Polyclinic, and they were going to do all these hospital ministries over there. Then at the time, because now the numbers were large, we had to focus on the individual groupings in the church. So around that time, women's ministries also sprang up. Because the women were many, and their needs were different from the men. So somebody had to attend to their needs. Then there were children's ministries. Richard Abankwa and Brenda McVeigh and a few people started children's ministries. Because when you go to church, you say, brother, go and teach the children. And brother is not prepared. He comes to church on Sunday morning and say, unprepared. And so they said, no, the children need special attention. And children Bible class teachers must come together to be trained. It led to children's ministries. There were youth fellowships. The youth will gather and have meetings. Then campus ministries also started in the tertiary institutions, where Church of Christ members at University of Ghana and Kwame Nkrumah University and University of Cape Coast gathered together to form campus ministries. Then there were evangelism groups. groups who were interested in evangelism. They said the spirit of evangelism is dying. People are not thinking about land and all that. We should do evangelism. So groups from different congregations will come together and say, we want to go to Pando Toko to go and preach. We want to go to Avetime to go and preach. We want to go to Kwewu Pipiase to go and preach. Groups like Soul Saving Squad. They were not from one congregation, different congregations. They came together purposely for evangelism. Then, Brother Kingsley Du, now Elder Kingsley Du, put together a tree hymn book, which was translated from the Sacred Selection. And when he brought out this hymn book, there was a previous one with about 49 to 50 songs, which had been done by S.A.O. Young. Then, brother from Ampofo, brother Joseph Ampofo, also came up with a hymn book. But Kingsley Du's one was a lot more, about 200 songs. And he would go from church to church to teach how to sing the songs. Because people didn't know how to. When they were trying to sing the English tune in the tree, they couldn't get it. So he would travel all over. He would travel from Kumasi to Akosombo to go and teach them how to sing. Then he decided the traveling was too much. So Sunday evenings at the Bomso Church, where he was a member, song leaders from Kumasi will come together at Bomso and he will teach them so they can go and help the churches to sing. Out of this came groups that also wanted to learn how to sing so they can teach. So the Kumasi Christian singers came up. In Accra, there was the Golden Voices, Christian Golden Voices, led by Prince Freeman. And so these singing groups also came. So there were groups interested in evangelism, there were groups interested in singing, to improve congregational singing. All these were part of consolidating the church. Let's make sure our worship is right. We are singing well. Let's make sure we don't forget evangelism. Let's come together. Let's make sure we are buying land. Let's do a fund. Let's make sure the women are giving work to do. Women's fellowship and the youth. And so these were all methods and means of consolidating the churches so the people don't leave. Because all of a sudden, our members are doubled and we had no plan for them. So these things came to consolidate, create a fence so that the people don't leave. They will stay in the church. This continued until the 90s, when brethren felt that the churches are not biblically organized. For a church to be biblically organized, the church must have elders and deacons and preachers and members. And there was no church in Ghana that was biblically organized. Scripturally organized, that's the proper term. So some congregations started to learn about the elderships and realized that when you look at the qualifications, only an angel can meet those qualifications. Then they realized, oh, human beings can also become elders. So after teaching and teaching and teaching, the Vertical Center Church of Christ on 29 September 1991 became the first church in Ghana. Vertical Center in Tema became the first church in Ghana to ordain elders. The next year in March, 1st March 1992, the Bomso Church of Christ in Kumasi also ordained elders. Then the next year in February, 7 February 1993, the Sharpeners Church of Christ in Accra became the third congregation to ordain elders. And then people felt that, oh, if they have done it at Insan Road, if they have done it at Bomso, if they have done it at Tema, then we too, we can ordain elders. And so congregations began to ordain elders. I have a comment on that, which I will reserve for the end. But by the year 2000, the largest churches of Christ congregations in Ghana had elders or stable leaderships. And so an increasing number that didn't have elders had men's committees to run the churches. Business committee, benevolence committee, evangelism committee, finance committee, and all of that. Some churches also went on to establish schools, as had been started the decade before, and now senior high schools also came in. So at Adientem, Asafo Church of Christ helped Belfurikrom establish a senior high school there. At Ateku, a senior high school was established. Both of them are called Church of Christ Senior High School. And then there's a secondary school in Gomuafete, and then also there's a secondary school in Ho, which is affiliated to the Church of Christ. So then we have now people thinking about a tertiary institution. Before then, it was like the church doesn't exist for these things: evangelism, soul, baptism. But with the consolidation, we realized we needed land, buildings, education, and with education, tertiary education. And so Heritage Christian University College was also born out of that. We will look at factors contributing to the growth of Churches of Christ, and then we will conclude. Before then, let's sing one song, and then we'll look at the last 2 points.
Please, let's stand up. Yeah, da wa se, yeah, wa, yeah. Oh, nyamyo batampa, yeah, wa se, yeah, da wa se, yeah, da wa se, yeah, yeah. Waya o nyamyo batampa yeda wasi o nyamyo batampa yeda wasi. Please have your seat.
2 more points and we'll be done. Factors that contributed to the growth of Churches of Christ in Ghana, and then the challenges that came out of the growth of Churches of Christ in Ghana and the way forward. There are many factors that led to the rapid growth of Churches of Christ. I'll mention 4. One is cooperation. The churches were able to be established and they grew because of cooperation. As I told you at the beginning, when he was contacted by Bani Lifaj, also contacted his fellow missionary Siwe Hall to travel to Ghana. But the money to travel came from Spain. And they came from Nigeria. And even on their second trip, they came with Nigerian evangelists. But even traveling to Ghana, they had to borrow a vehicle from another missionary. That is how the gospel first came to Ghana, by missionaries working together. That is how the church grew. From the very beginning, they would organize in Kumasi joint worship services. Way back in 1963. And a missionary from Nigeria, he was called Bishop, forgotten his name, but Bishop was his actual name, traveled from Nigeria to Ghana to preach at the first joint worship service of Churches of Christ. So when you hear of joint worship, it's not a new thing. It started way back in the 60s. Because the churches were cooperating. Cooperation worked so well because the local preachers knew each other from Bible school. They are going to Bible school together. They knew each other. So when they now went to the field, they will work with their classmates and their schoolmates. And they will work together to plant churches. When the Insan Road Church of Christ, under the Nebuchadnezzar, started the annual Bible lectureship, usually hosted in the church building around the Easter time. Churches from all over Ghana came. People from Sekendi, Takrade, Sopong, were in Accra. People from Kumasi, Koforidua, Suhum were there. Because the churches saw themselves as one church. And so they came together. Then the Oforikrom and then the Asafo Churches of Christ in Kumasi also came together and started Bible camp, where around the Christmas time, they will go to a city, a town where there was a senior high school or secondary school in those days, take over the dormitories, the assembly hall, and the whole school, the kitchen and everything. And they invited Churches of Christ from Ghana. And people from everywhere went. When they went to Setri, people from all over went there. Because the churches saw themselves as one. And so they worked together. And there was this strong bond of fellowship among them. And that fellowship was because the preachers led the way. If I went to school with somebody and he's having a lectureship and he invites me, I will go with my church leaders. I will go with my members. When Tema Vertical Center, they had their land, they wanted to build a wooden structure. They wrote letters to the churches. We need construction workers, carpenters, masons, electricians from the churches. And the preachers were looking, oh, you're carpenter, Kotema. Oh, you're mason, and the churches contributed workers to build their first building there. Because the preachers were showing leadership. And they knew each other and they worked together. Another factor was sacrifice. All the pioneering missionaries and converts made significant sacrifices for the establishment and growth of Churches of Christ. Missionaries took great risks to travel to unknown places to preach and convert souls. Think about it. When Jerry Reynolds and the Davenport were coming to Ghana, they didn't come for a survey trip. Usually you will go, if you want to plant church, they say go and do a survey. You go in the town and do a survey. They should have come to Ghana and come and do a survey trip, then go and prepare. They took their wives and children and their things, flew straight to Nigeria and to Ghana. They didn't know anybody. They hadn't done any survey, no experiment. They came. Think about Charles Scott and the preachers he came with. These were American preachers preaching in their various congregations. They will come to Ghana and they will be spread throughout the villages. They were sleeping in mud huts, eating local food with their preacher, students, interpreters. Can you imagine? No hotels. These Americans came and went to the villages. That is how Nyerebehi and all these villages had churches. Extreme sacrifices. Those Ghanaians who became preachers had their churches. Samuel Obin had his church. Emmanuel Alfred Asante had his church. He had a group of churches that were under him before he converted to Church of Christ. Even Gade himself, as I told you, John Gade, the first Church of Christ convert, was a major in the Salvation Army Church, close to retirement. And he forfeited his retirement benefits by leaving the church to go to Church of Christ. Sacrifice was what led to the establishment and growth of the churches. Those who went to school of preaching had to leave their work, go and stay for 2 years. It's not these days that we have a satellite campus. Come on Saturday. Come. If you want to do God's work, we want total commitment or none. If you want to come, leave your work, stop and come. And so by stopping and going to the school of preaching for 2 years, their sources of income had been cut. And some of them were supported by their wives. And some of them, from the day they came, their families plunged into poverty and have been in poverty to this day. Because they stopped work to come to school for 2 years. And then after that, go and preach. And the churches were small. And the churches could not support them adequately with their collections. So the trainee preachers and the local preachers made extreme sacrifices so that the church would grow. And most of the evangelism, well, I'll talk about that. Let me talk about the third point, unity. Most preachers were trained in only 2 schools. Today, we have more than 20 schools of preaching in Ghana, more than 20. But in the beginning and in the 80s and in the 90s, there were only 2 schools of preaching. It was in the 90s, early 90s, that the third one came. It was only Ghana Bible College in Kumasi and National Bible Institute in Accra. They started at Accra School of Preaching in 71 or so. And then 81, it became National Bible Institute, or thereabout. 81, 82, 83, thereabout. Then, it was 82, thank you. Then, in the early 90s, Western School of Biblical Studies started in Takoradi. That was the third school. Because there were only 2 schools and later 3 schools, the preachers knew each other. They were friends. When they traveled, they stayed in their colleagues' homes. So they were united in all that they did. In fact, all churches met at the same time, 9 o'clock. That's the biblical time. 9 o'clock, Sunday morning. 9 to 10, Bible classes. 10 to 12, worship service. Everywhere. So when you're going to church, don't ask, say, Musia time, babe. And you're 9. Everybody knew that. All our signboards were blue and white. Blue and white. I think the Jolly Church was the rebel church that started the red and white or something. All signboards were blue and white, Church of Christ. So when you're going, you see blue and white, Church of Christ. Just go there, 9 o'clock, they will be there. Wednesday is Bible studies. Friday is singing. So there was this sense of unity among the churches, friendship and fellowship among the preachers. And then when it comes to what bound the churches together, it was doctrine and practice. The churches taught the same thing. Fundamental. The Lord's Day or the Sabbath day. Instrumental music in worship, is it right or wrong? The 3 dispensations. Have miracles ceased? Can a woman be a preacher? Okay, these were the organization of the church. The church of the New Testament. We knew the topics, and year after year, it was the same topics. It was the same topics. And members mastered it. Said that if you are visiting brother from Accra, and you went to a village, oh, brother, for instance, I wrote your Christ, and you have a Bible class. No, I said, a notebook. Whatever Bram Pedro has taught you, you look at it and say, today we are going to talk about speaking in tongues. Then whatever you learned, you pour it and you go away. And the style was polemic. That is to say, if you don't show people their fault, you haven't preached. So, anything we teach, we must make sure we show the denominations that they are wrong and why they are wrong. We'll prove it. So it was more of polemics. Why they are wrong, why we are right. And these are the topics. And year after year after year. You will not see a church say we are studying the book of Romans for Wednesday Bible class. Why? No. We have to study a topic. So it was topical, polemic, proving the denominations wrong, why we are right, and it was the same everywhere you went. Signboard the same, meeting times the same. And our practice was the same. As I said, Sunday Bible class, worship. Wednesday Bible class. Friday, singing. Prayers came later, much later. Prayers was not part. It was later that it came about. After all night, it was a strange occurrence. Much later. So there was this sense of unity among the churches. The fourth thing was leadership. Churches of Christ had been led by ministers and preachers, and a group of men at the local church under the leadership of the preacher. Even when there was a lot of excitement about eldership. No, year 1, vertical center. Year 2, Bomsu. Year 3, Sound Road. Hey, now every year we have eldership. It died out. Yes, a few churches have eldership, but how people were expecting that now almost every church will be scripturally organized with elders and deacons. It didn't happen that way. And so to this day, majority, more than 95% of our churches are still preacher-led with leading men in the congregation. Now the growth happened because the preachers led the evangelism. After Sunday morning, the preacher will lead the way to the lorry station. The young men in the church will take a board and go and put it at the station with the preacher with the chalk. Go and ask your preacher or your pastor, why are you doing these things when the Bible is saying you shouldn't do it? And the preacher was the one leading it. And so people were passionate about evangelism. And it was to bring souls into the local church. It was preachers who would decide, let me go and plant a church here, and then they will go. With or without any support, they will go and plant churches. And then local men too, when they travel to their hometown or they went somewhere, you see, they have planted a church. Hardly will you find a church. I'm not saying it never happened, but it was exceptional that a church will sit down and plan that we are going to this place to go and plant a church, and we will take care of the church for 2 years for it to be established. Perhaps the only exception was Daniel Pedro. They will plan, say we are going to Water Ridge in Peki to go and start a church, or we are going here to go and start a church. Then later, some of Chumesiakra and Sound Road too, they will say, let's go and plant a church at Jowulu. Let's go and plant a church at Utah. Let's go and plant a church at Odoko, and all these things. But churches didn't plan to plant churches. So Sound Road was quite a unique case. Most of the time, it was the preacher who would go and plant the church. And then some member somewhere will go and plant a church and come and say, oh, your tears already be wa. And a few occasions, sometimes we blow it out of proportion. But on a few occasions, there will be disagreements, and then there will be a split. And one group will go to this Anglican LA primary school, and this one will stay in the Catholic LA primary school as well. So out of one church, we get 2 churches. But it wasn't that rampant, these disagreements that resulted in plenty of churches. But it was leadership from the preachers that resulted greatly in the expansion of churches of Christ. So the churches have been established. The churches have grown rapidly. The churches have been consolidated. The churches now have mature leadership, elders, deacons. And even when they don't have elders and deacons, they have some mature men in various committees. They are organized, so they are mature. But with every human being and with every organism and with every organization, once you get mature, you begin to feel body pains. You can ask the old men here. Me, I'm a young man. I'm not feeling any. But ask the old men here. A man who would just wake up, now they wake up. Now the bones and the joints, there are pains. These are the pains of maturity. You cannot run like when you were a young man. Giddy, 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 giddy. Young corner, hey, yeah. When you grow older, you slow down. And you start to feel body pains, body aches all over you. Sometimes you're waking up from bed, you cry, it's a problem. Because of old age. Now, with the maturity of churches of Christ, also came pains associated with growing old. Because the church that started in 1958 is not a young man. Somebody do the mathematics for me. 2023 minus 1958. How many? 65 years. So Church of Christ, if it were a human being, has gone on pension for 5 years. You are an old church. Oh. You are not a young man anymore. So in old age, there are problems. And the challenges came or have come in, I'll mention 2 ways. Doctrine and practice. Some matters people feel are matters of opinion. So we can disagree. You can hold this opinion, that's fine. I can hold my opinion, that's fine. She can hold the opinion, that's fine. There's no problem. I said, no. Anything the Bible talks about is not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of doctrine. We must all speak the same thing. Paul says we must say the same thing. So there can be no disagreement. The result has been pains of old age. When we were young, we were not thinking about these things. But now that we are old, this is coming up. Autonomy versus cooperation. Is it right for different congregations to collect money and open a separate bank account with signatories from 4 different congregations that they are going to use that money to buy land? Can we take our collection, Sunday collection money, say every week we will contribute 10% of our collection? Is it biblical? Is it not an organization outside the local organization, the local church? A fund must be within the local church, organized and held accountable by the local church. Not some people from different churches form a CCDF, Church of Christ Development Fund. No. It's unbiblical. So, it's cooperation. It's just cooperation. That's the other people. It's just churches who are cooperating. After all, what did Paul say? As I've told the churches in Galatia, you to do the same on the first of the week. Collect your things. So when I come, there will be no. And then they put their things together and they sent it by Paul and Titus or whatever to Jerusalem. Didn't they put the donations together to send to the Jerusalem or to Judea? So we are just collecting things together. But it's the same church. No. No. So, autonomy versus cooperation. We claim we cooperate. In what way? In what way? So that becomes a problem. Leadership and organization. All leadership must be congregational. That is what we know from the beginning. In the 1960s and 70s, congregational. So, it cannot change. But now the government, other people will say, but now the government requires that it knows who we are. The other time, this church went to buy land. And then they were fighting with the Methodist Church over ownership. They went to court. They just say, who are you? It's a Church of Christ. Who are you? Methodist Church. Show me your identity. The Methodist Church went to bring their gazetted, they say, Church of Christ. Where is your constitution? The New Testament. In this court of law, Methodist Church, the land is yours. Church of Christ, you don't even exist. We don't know you. Hey, then brethren, let's come together. Let's have one registration. No. Every congregation, 4,000 or 5,000 congregations, never, we don't know how many they are. Every congregation must do its own registration. So, the Ifaro Church of Christ, 4 lawyers, bankers, university lecturers, all these engineers, they just 1 week go to Registrar General, register. And Chinebrefor Church of Christ, the village in Wasa, 14 women, 3 men, all farmers. Nobody has gone to school there. They should also go and register. Now, registration here is saying, oh, here the form. Just fill the form and put a stamp and go to post office. Mame, make a stamp. Now, the team here registration. You are talking about stamp where you put stamp and you sign. It was the post office. So, or to stamp. They say we want to stamp. We see form. Also, we go post office to stamp. He said they also must also register. Village or city, they must all register. Yes, because the church must be locally organized. No, but we can do a national one, and we are not going to impose any laws. We just have to trouble. This is what we are going to it. This is what they so conservative and liberalism. All those who want to register the church under one umbrella, the apostates, liberals. All those, when they are taking the Lord's Supper, they are singing at the same time. Libras. Because the acts of worship are separate and distinct. And they must be done one after the other. You cannot combine the two. When you are eating, do you sing? How can you be eating with the Lord and be singing at the same time? Hey, no. Finish Lord's Supper, sing. Finish singing, pray. That's the order. So these are liberals. These are conservative. And the other person, look at them. They don't want the church to grow. They are still stuck in 1958. Look at them. Look at what they are doing. So, which is which? Preacher support and welfare. How do we support preachers? Who appoints preachers? Who determines the preacher's salary? The preacher went to the community. There was no church there. Wrote to the district director of education and started the church. Got a classroom to start the church. Went house to house. Baptized all the members. Now they have come. There are 60 members. As usual. 40 women and 20 men. There are also 80 children, but they are not part. We don't count them. Now, who should determine the preacher's salary? Is it the people he converted or himself? The law says every employer must pay social security for the employee. Is the preacher an employee of the church? Yes. Can the preacher be dismissed? Yes. Are you paying social security? Man, country. So preachers, a preacher wants to go on leave. Why should you go on leave? Did Paul go on leave? Why should you go on leave? You are the preacher. So if you go on leave and during that time there's a funeral, who will do it? And if somebody wants to marry, and if there's a marital problem in the church, how can the preacher go and leave? Preachers don't go and leave. Why are you talking about leave? Back and forth. Back and forth. These are the pains associated with growing old. And so, with the maturity, you see that from 2000 and especially 2006 coming, the churches of Christ are experiencing a lot of disagreements. Should preachers form an association or even a fellowship? Why should they form a fellowship? It is this fellowship that will lead us down the slippery slope towards apostasy. They start, now the preachers will now be making laws. The preachers say, but we are colleagues. We meet to eat our wife's food, have fellowship. Can't preachers also have fellowship? Can't preachers have fellowship? Can't we think about our welfare? You are not paying our social security. You're also thinking, this preacher is sick. He needs money to go and do appendicitis. Kolebu 4,000. A preacher in Accra pays 600 a month. And he goes to the church and they say, okay, here's 1,000. Now 3,000 no cover away. So he goes to his colleague and says, association, let's collect some money and you preacher keep the money. When somebody needs a hey, no, it's unbiblical. Because it will lead to you establishing. Should the woman collect money? And should they make a cloth and wear? Freedom. God has called us to freedom. Whether you wear jeans or batakari or suit or agbaja or kaba and slit. Freedom. You can wear anything you want. It's your choice. So long as you say that, you don't say that any woman who doesn't wear this piece of cloth, you are disfellowship. You are at liberty. When you get money, you can buy. In fact, some of us will also buy for the women who don't have money to buy. No. You cannot do that. That way you make yourself distinguished group in the church. It is not right. Women cannot sew cloth. Women cannot collect money outside the local church congregation. Where do we stand? All these are issues with growth, with the growth. There are a lot more, but let's go on. The last thing I'll talk about, maybe last but one, is challenges related to the life cycle of the church. Now listen, people have researched with evidence, organizations made up of human beings, and they have come out conclusively that all organizations go through 5 stages. All organizations, whether it is a church or a business organization or people from the same town, they form a union or something, or all students association. Any organization made up of human beings go through 5 stages. Growth, it starts, grows, it gets to a point, it begins to consolidate and gets itself well organized. Then it becomes full and lax. Then complaints come, then it begins to deteriorate. And the churches of Christ are no exception. What we are experiencing, it has been proven, and it has happened in Church of Christ in America several times. In America, the Church of Christ started as one. Then, in the 1880s or 1800s, disagreement brought a split about organization. Can the churches be organized? We say we have to win the whole world. How can individual congregations win the world? Let's come together and form a missionary society that we will collect money and send missionaries to Africa, China, and all over the world. But if we do it individually, it will take us forever. We will never evangelize the world. Hey, no. So there was a split. One group that wanted to organize themselves called themselves disciples of Christ. It's a simplistic explanation, but I'm summarizing. Then the rest were the Christian churches. Then, in the late 1800s, issues came again. Disagreement. Then we split. So 1906, there's the Christian church and then Churches of Christ. It has happened in America. Disciples of Christ, Christian church, Church of Christ is the same grandfather. But disciples split. And then in 1906, Church of Christ and Christian church also split. And since then, there has been other splits. Let me explain the 5 points. Religious bodies go through life cycles of growth, decline, and division. And Church of Christ are not exempt. The first stage is incipient organization stage, where there is dissatisfaction and unrest, eventually leading to a reform movement. So, they are going to Methodists. Then, they see somebody at the Lord's station, say, go and ask your pastor, is tithing biblical? Should Christians give tithe? Then they go and ask their pastor. The pastor doesn't give them any good explanation. They are dissatisfied. Then the next time they go and they say, instrumental music is wrong. Then they go and ask the pastor. The pastor doesn't give there's dissatisfaction. You people are not, then they break away. Why? They want a reform movement. They want to follow the Bible. So these people are not following the Bible, they break away. Because there was a dissatisfaction. That's the incipient stage. Then the new group of breakaways, those who are broken away from Presby, Methodist, Anglican, whatever, they come together and they develop a distinctive identity. They demand total commitment and loyalty to the group and lashes out at what they perceive to be corruption in true religion. Please, this one, a sociologist who wrote it too. They were not writing about your church. It's a general research that they wrote. When the group breaks away, now they have to have their unique identity. Who are we? There are 5 means of coming to the church. You hear the word, you believe, you repent, you confess, you are baptized. If you haven't done these 5, Now, when you come, there are 5 hours of worship. Sing, pray, take the Lord's Supper, collection, and hear the word of God. We don't use instruments. We don't do this. We don't speak in tongues. We create a unique identity. Because we have broken away from all these groups. We don't baptize infants. You create a unique identity. Then you lash out against corruption in religion. If you do this, you are wrong. If you do this, you are going to hell. If you do this, you are wrong. The people who wrote this, they were not thinking about your church. They're scientists, researchers, and they put this together. That's the second stage, formal organization. Then the third stage is maximum efficiency stage. Organizational efficiency and acceptance into the larger community is pursued. Now that everybody knows who we are, now we must organize ourselves well. We have to get land. We have to get buildings. We have to be recognized. They say churches must register. We'll go and register. Then the graphic will publish. The churches that have been recognized by the PNDC government. Number 1, Church of Christ. Hey! Have you seen? We are the true Bible church. We are number 1. In the past, who cares? We don't care the praises of men. We don't care if the government recognizes us. We are going to heaven. Who cares about the men recognizing us? But now that we have an identity, we want recognition. So we are happy that we are recognized. Now people know who we are. We have our church buildings. Oh, uko Circular. Oh, uko Newtown. Oh, uko Kumasi. Asafuho. Oh, yes, recognition. And so, when the survey is done, they say the Church of Christ is the fastest growing church in Ghana. We are the fastest church. Because we are now a formal organization. And we want maximum efficiency. And we want acceptance into the larger community. Where in the past, nobody cared. But when you reach that stage, you want to be recognized. Then the fourth stage is institutional stage. The church becomes a bureaucracy. Membership standards decline. Ritualistic worship and secular activities dominate these activities. When was the last time you heard of a disfellowship letter? When we were at the formal organization stage, if we see you and a man enter the room, disfellowship. Now, when was the last time you... And we'll send letters to all the churches in Accra. This sister is no longer a member of the Church of Christ. We have disfellowship. So when she comes to your churches, don't recognize her. But don't hate her. But do that so that she will repent. And letters will be sent to 50 churches of Christ. Sometimes with the sister's picture. It's been disfellowship. When was the last time you heard of disfellowship? When somebody smells breath in your alcohol in your breath, disfellowship. But when you get to the institutional stage, membership is last. People come to church. 2 years they have not been baptized, and they come every Sunday. We will not give them any role to play in the worship, leading role. But they are there. You will never get this at the formal organization that says 2. We will baptize you today. We will preach until you say you want to baptize. But when you become a formal organization and then you are institutionalized, membership standards decline. Why? Your children grew up in the church. So are they Christians or they are not Christians? They have been there from Sunday school. They know them. They know everything. And so now you get to that stage and it's even difficult for you to get people to attend programs. Organize a lectureship. Nobody shows up. In the past, when a lecture was organized in Sahara Road, people from Takwa and they all come. Now, Greater Accra preachers organize a lectureship for the churches. You go there, 200 members. In Sahara Road itself, on Sunday, they are 1,002. But when the preachers in Greater Accra organize a program, 200 members attend. You can't get them to attend. Because you are now at the institutional stage. Worship is ritualistic, the same thing. We are more interested in youth going here. Women go in there. It is all part of the growth of the organization or the church. Then there is a disintegration stage. There's increase in formalism, absolutism, indifference, and even corruption. So long as we are preaching the truth, it doesn't matter our character. So people are duping the church collection. Those counting will pocket some. And those who have to take you to the bank, they will use some before they take you to the bank. So, mini emergency, may the back call. They have reached that stage. And so what happens? This could lead to complete collapse, an internal renewal movement, or the formation of a new set, and the process begins all over again. What is going on now is the result of the growth. Churches of Christ are now leaving the institutional stage. We are entering the fifth stage, where people become dissatisfied. The way you are treating the preachers is not right. The way they are living in poverty is not right. Therefore, we will not go to school of preaching. So what has happened? Decline. Even when you bring it to their doorstep, they don't come. Because to be a Church of Christ preacher is to condemn yourself to poverty. So there's a rebellion. Our sons will not want to be like us. So they refuse. People don't attend programs. If you do it, they like, they come, they like, they don't come. You can't compare anybody. Evangelism. Even house to house, they won't go. After church, everybody goes home. Because you are the institutional stage. All I need to do is come and worship and go. Wednesday Bible class, attendance goes down. It's not you. It is the stage in which the organization, the church, has reached. And so, there is dissatisfaction. And if care is not taken, there will be a collapse. If there is no collapse, there will be a division. And so 3 things you must look out for at this stage, where the Church of Christ in Ghana has reached. We are entering the 5th stage. And like any human being, you are born, you grow rapidly. You see how teenagers, overnight, they become giants. Rapidly. Then you get to the adult stage. Then you go to retirement. After retirement, you die. So if care is not taken, one of 3 things will happen. Decline. So you realize that the days we said Church of Christ was the fastest growing church in Ghana is no more. We are not the fastest. We are not even close to the fastest. There's decline in evangelism. There's decline in growth of membership. There's decline in participation. You check your own congregation. The enthusiasm is declining. You can't get the young people to attend. But if you say we are meeting at the National Theatre, his praise chorale is going to do a presentation. You don't have to, they will pay, buy ticket and go. Or Victory Vocals are doing a program at the teachers' hall, not hall. They will pay money and go. Come to Friday singing practice. They won't come. Free. They won't come. It is a stage. So there could be decline in numbers, decline in participation, decline in enthusiasm. There could be division. And if care is not taken, it will happen. Because those people here are apostates. Those here are the right people. These people are wrong. These people are right. And then there will be division. And if care is not taken, it will happen. It will happen. That's what somebody can say. That these people who form preacher association, they are not part of the church. You didn't hear that? By what authority? That's the division coming. Because they formed an association. Or a fellowship, forgive me, it's a fellowship. Which one group feels is unbiblical. Therefore, they cannot recognize them. Therefore, they are not part of the church, for forming a preachers' fellowship. That is where it is going to. If you disagree with me, I cannot fellowship with you. It has happened in America over and over, and if care is not taken, it will happen in Ghana. Because we've reached that stage. So it's not just happening, oh. It is part of the natural growth of every human institution. And the third thing that will happen is disintegration. Disintegration. So you go to northern Ghana, where people have gone to plant churches, baptize villages, and then they left them. Nobody cares for them. Then another church, a different church, not Church of Christ, goes to the village. And the people are there. Who is your pastor? We don't have a pastor. Who is your this? We don't have a this. Is that so? Then we can lead you. Oh, yes. Then they go and bring the instrument. And then they change the signboard. Remove Church of Christ and put a new symbol. Who are you to go and challenge them? What is your locus? You are a local member in a church in Accra, Kumasi. Can you go to Wangaja or whatever and go and say, why did they change the signboard? By what authority? So there's disintegration. And churches of Christ in northern, some villages are turning. Because there's no leadership. There's no leadership. And so that disintegration. And then you come to the south and they are fighting. Churches of Christ are fighting. Social media. When people are using social media for good, you are using social media to fight one another. And the other churches, they are recording the messages. Social media never forgets. Social media never forgets. If you post something there, it will be there. You can go and delete it. It's there. So people from other churches are copying these messages and storing them. Church of Christ, so everybody is watching. And if care is not taken, there will be disintegration. It is a part of natural growth of organizations. We have moved from stage 1 through stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. We are entering stage 5. So what is the way forward? Few organizations are able to experience healthy renewal when they enter stage 5. Very few. There's either decline, division, or disintegration. Very few are able to renew themselves so they don't disintegrate. What the churches of Christ in Ghana need is mature spiritual leadership that will lead them to navigate the turbulence of raging forces. What are these raging forces? Lovelessness, intolerance, insensitivity, infighting, and division. In the past, 2 churches in one city, one church disfellowship with the other church because they said they were teaching false doctrine. And they wrote letters to all of us in Ghana. From this day, we don't recognize this church as a Church of Christ because it was on marriage and remarriage. They are teaching falsehood on marriage, divorce, and remarriage. We have disfellowship with them. Leadership sits in Kumasi, Bomso, and say, come to a neutral ground. The leadership of the 2 churches went to Kumasi. We are brothers. Why are this? You can disfellowship individuals. You can't disfellowship a whole church. What is it? Let's patch it. Go. Organize a lectureship. We will come and teach. Case closed. Today, how dare you invite somebody from another city? He should come under you. Who are you to invite me in the first place? Sambalat and Tobiah. When I'm doing God's work, you are inviting me. We need matured spiritual leadership. There's been problems in the past. No doubt, there's been problems in the past. But those problems were solved within because leadership was respected. When SB Obin calls you, when Christian Insowa calls you, when Daniel Pedro calls you, who are you not to go? so they can call and settle matters. Today, who is calling who? Who respects who? Obia and Obia. And so there are problems that we don't know how to solve it. Because when you even try to invite, the person will tell you, by what authority are you inviting me? I won't come. And what can you do? You can't do anything. That's what I say. You can't do FOCO. You can't do anything. And we are in the stage where if care is not taken, there will be division. People have already said some people are not part of the church. They're already disfellowshipping people. So we need mature spiritual leadership. There's lovelessness. In the past, you hear something, you go to brother, this is what I heard. What do you say about it? Today, here's what you put on social media. I've heard that. Somebody says that. Those people in this city, this is what they are doing. And if that is what they are doing, it is wrong. It's unbiblical. Meanwhile, the person hasn't even gone there to ask, what are you doing? No love. I won't mention names. I was going to mention names. Two people disagree on the program. One said it, another said it. And then, after the program, they went to sit and they were eating and talking as friends. I said, wow. And there was no problem. Today, it is not like that. Infighting, insensitivity. I can destroy you. I can say anything about you. I don't care. So we label people and then we damn them. We label them, we damn them. We label them, we damn them. A focus on Christ-likeness and dependence on God through prayerfulness would create Christians who look and act like Christ and are discerning in cultivating healthy renewal and growth. If the church is going to renew itself, we're at a stage where if we don't renew, we are going to die. We are going to disintegrate. And it will happen. Don't think it can never happen. It will happen. It has happened in history. Unless you don't read history. It can happen. The Church of Christ will never die. But the Church of Christ in Accra or Kumasi or Cape Coast or Ghana can die. But it doesn't mean the Church of Christ has died in the world. Go to Europe. Church of Christ is dead there. Left with a few congregations. When there used to be many. It's happening in America. Every week, Church of Christ are closing their doors. I don't know if you are aware. In America. Big buildings, so they are closing them. The way we can renew ourselves is to be like Christ. Beloved, it is not the quotations you quote that shows you're a Christian. It is the life you live. We have majored in quoting scripture, condemning people for false teaching, and we are living false lives. Our teaching is right, but our character is false. And we don't see anything wrong with that. People who defraud others, preachers who defraud others, take their money. And they don't see anything wrong. And then they talk about if you collect tithe, you are wrong. If you play instrument, you are wrong. If you speak in tongues, you are wrong. But if you steal your brother's money, you are right. Christ-like character is what God is demanding from us. Does it mean doctrine doesn't matter? Doctrine matters. Doctrine matters. But you cannot have the right doctrine and the wrong character. They don't go together. And if this church is going to survive and renew itself, we need people who are like Christ, who are prayerful, who are thoughtful of others, who are discerning. That is what it needs. So let us begin to cultivate the right character. Let's speak the truth. If you don't know something for a fact, don't say it. If you hear something about it, go ahead and ask. And be a person of integrity. Don't lie. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Because no amount of right doctrine can save you from a life of fornication. I preach well. Therefore, it doesn't matter what I do in the secret. It matters. When we are like Christ, we are humble. And when we are humble, we are willing to listen to our brothers and sisters, hear their side with an open mind. Brother, why are you doing this? Why have you people come together to form this? What are your aims or objectives? Why did you invite this person? Why did you do this? Listen to them. Okay. Now I understand. But you just don't go about condemning people because you know everything. You are not willing to listen to anybody. We need an attitude of Christ-likeness. That will help us. Christian love, maturity, humility, and reliance on the Holy Spirit are needed to deal with the issues that cannot be wished away. These issues cannot be wished away. Oh, I wish the church were like in the 80s when we were loving each other. But the church is past that stage. We are not in the 80s. We have passed even 2000. We are now going to 24 years after 2000. So don't wish for something that is past. It is part of a growth cycle. Growth cycle. So these matters cannot be wished away. You cannot just wish that it will not happen. Oh, it will. We need Christ-likeness in us. When I behave like Christ, I seek your interest and welfare. I humble myself. I seek your well-being. When you behave like Christ, you seek my interest and welfare. You humble yourself. You seek my well-being. When we all behave like Christ, then people will know that truly we are the disciples of Jesus. Other than that, mark my words. Other than that, there will be division in the church. The church will disintegrate. Or there will be decline. And I'm not a prophet. These are things that have been well researched into and proven empirically. So I'm not saying something revealed to me. It's research that is there. It has happened in America, where they've gone through division upon division upon division. And there can be division. There can be disintegration. We will not matter. In the past, when Church of Christ speak, you matter. Now nobody minds you. You will not matter in the scheme of affairs. You will not matter. Or decline. And for the decline, I think it's already happening. It doesn't mean no church will grow. It doesn't mean, but on the total scale, that's what we're talking about. I'm not saying that every church is declining. That's not what I'm saying. But on the totality of things, are we growing? Are we increasing or we are declining? So let's be godly in our character. Let's be Christ-like in our attitude. Let's be prayerful and let's be spirit-filled in our actions. That is where the future of the church lies. The church belongs to Christ. And he will make it stand. But if we want the one in Ghana to stand, we have work to do. Let's go back to God and ask for his help. Thank you and God bless you.
Dr. Fred Asari, God bless you for allowing him to use you to bless us this morning. Let us sing one song, and then after that, we are going to put ourselves into 4 groups. We'll go over this. We have secretaries who take down our notes, our discussion, then we'll come back. We'll do that for 1 hour, then we'll come back. So let's be on our feet, sing one song, and then we'll do that. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, why, yeah. Oh, nyamyo atampa. Yeah, da, wa. Say, da, wa, say, da, wa. Say, wa, yeah. Eye waye onyami obatampe o nyami obatampa yeda wasin. Let us ask our brother and son to say a word of prayer, thanking God for the vessel he has used. And then also
Adofo my mumpai. Yeda was you are ye. Ye come full. Ye tron. If so, ye can see. Aina Sudan Kaudinda. Yeda was anopai. A year in tear. Okay, any year for Yano dem. Not a cramadabo dream. Na aso bie. Etie winsem. Near Yan Sakrai. Yeda was a branch here. Within the maying. A hoarding within the dream. Nyansa wode aka ne ho ne nhwehwem a waye ama yate baabi a yefi ne baabi a yebedu agya na asenka odin daa yesrew ahoden biara afi ne mu no san de behye ne mu wahunu mɔbɔ aye nadom na wama wate ase sɛ enwie na waboa no ama wate ne mu na ɔde apema kwa anim ahwehwɛ bebree yɛtiefo nso yɛde wɔn hyɛ wɔn nsa yɛsrɛ sɛ bɛma yɛn nkɔma pa na wayi akyinnyegye kɔma afie mu na yɛnyɛ ɔpɛ sɛ yɛbɛsua akɔ yɛn anim na yɛde abɔ afoforɔ nso mpɛn dodoɔ a nkwa ne home ɛwɔ yɛn mu yɛgya dwumadi aka nyinaa hyɛ wo nsa sɛ wobɛyɛ otitirani na waboa yɛn awie no na nkonimde ayɛ wo de na iye ne adɔe nso ama asafo yi na yɛtumi apem akɔ ne mu ahyɛ wo din anuonyam eyi ɛne bebree na yɛsrɛ dɔba yɛagyenkɔpa yesu kristo din mu nti amen.
Amen. Please have your seat. So we are going to start from here. We count 1 to 4, then we start from 1 again. Okay. So, Madam, start for us. 1. 1. 1. 2. Please go to that side. 1. Huh? No. Please sit this side. Go ahead, finish with this side. So start from 4. 4. You are 4. Eh? 1. 4. 1. You are 1. Madam, 2, 3. Yes. 4. 1. 4. 4. 1. Wait. Oh. You say you are 3. Didn't you say? You say you are 3. So, yes. 4. 2. So let me start. So you are 4. You are 4. Yes. 4. Yes. No. 3. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 3. Okay. All right. So all ones will be here. Please, all twos, be on your feet. All twos. All those who counted 2, the number 2. Please stand up. All 2. All the twos. Please. Who is taking them there? So please come. All twos. David, okay, so please go to the young man up there. He will take you to your room. And then get the secretary. Group one. So 2, please follow. They will go, yes. I want to do it one by so I do not. All right. Then all 3s. All number threes. Follow this lady. Yes. Your name? Sandra. Please go with Sandra. She will take you upstairs. I'll come down, come and give you paper.
My name is Patricia Moore, and I am the head of the Department of Management Studies. The department currently has 3 programs running, and they are Logistics and Supply Chain Management, Marketing and Human Resource Management. There are several career prospects for individuals who pursue any of these programs. Studying a program like Logistics and Supply Chain Management provides you the opportunity to become a procurement manager, logistics manager, inventory manager, and others. For marketing, one can become a brand manager, sales manager, marketing manager, just to mention a few. In the area of human resource management, you can become a compensation manager, recruitment manager, training and development manager, and others.
My name is Nuruddin Adams, and I'm a proud alumnus of Heritage Christian University College. And I must say, being the best graduating student of 2022, it wasn't easy. But with the right environment, I found it much more pleasant to learn in Heritage. You know what? This has opened a lot of opportunities for me to work with one of the best record labels in Ghana and some top artists. And so, I entreat you to come to Heritage Christian College. And when you come, make sure you are studying BBA Marketing and even do your Masters as well, because this is the right place for you.
3 things set Heritage apart, and they are entrepreneurship, technology-driven learning, and becoming a professional in your area of study. With these aims in mind, the school has implemented mechanisms to support students in these areas.
Hello, my name is Mercy Akosdeku, a proud graduate of Heritage Christian College from the Department of Management Studies, where I read Bachelor of Business Administration in Human Resource Management. The department is driven by well-experienced and caring faculty and staff who made my learning here an incredible one. Their commitment and dedication towards bringing light to each student to know, to be, to serve, and to lead is just unmatched.
The school provides seed money up to 100,000 to support student businesses, free tuition to prepare students to write their professional exams, and assist students to acquire laptops and pay in installments. On that note, I encourage any one of you listening to me to apply to Heritage, to join our community, to experience better tertiary education.
Hi, my name is Dr. Nathan Bills. I am the head of the Department of Theology and Ministry at Heritage Christian University College. At Heritage, we are interested in forming our students and graduates in the values of conviction and character and creativity, compassion, and community. At the heart of Heritage's mission is the Department of Theology and Ministry. Heritage was founded as a church response to a continental need. So Heritage, in its very DNA, cares about the church, cares about forming men and women who have spiritual depth and can lead in their communities. We have a Bachelor's of Theology and Ministry, and very soon we will be onboarding a Master's in Christian Studies, a Bachelor's in Community Development and Theology, and a 2-year diploma in Theology and Ministry. Our graduates, and we've had several classes, are in a number of different disciplines. Some, of course, are teaching in churches and leading and ministering in churches. Some are church planting and doing mission work. but others are in the fields of counseling or social work or community development or teaching.
My name is Francis Brown, an alumnus of Heritage Christian College. I have a degree from the Department of Theology and Ministry, and currently the president of Heritage Alumni Association. Heritage did not just give me an education. It built in me a sense of community and also equipped me with the right skills and tools to be able to effectively lead my congregation. I invite you into a world where welcoming leaders are ready to help you in your academic and spiritual journey.
In fact, we have many students who just want some deeper understanding of scriptures and theology and ministry, who are in other vocations, but who have been asked to lead in their churches. And we welcome those students as well. So I invite you to make application to Heritage. Call us, come and see us, come visit our campus and experience the difference that Heritage makes. We want you here.
Hello. Do you know, by doing your undergraduate studies in informatics at Heritage Christian College, you can get professional certifications too? Yes, you can. My name is Jojo Latte, and I lead the Department of Informatics at Heritage. Our program is informed by the need for graduates who have deep understanding of ideas and skill sets for informatics to serve the nation. My message to you is, please come enroll with us in any of our programs, namely BSc Information Technology, BSc Information Security, so that you can get this benefit. One, you get to learn hands-on experience with compassionate faculty who are themselves practitioners in the field. Two, you get mandatory training in entrepreneurship and ethics. Three, we give you relevant industry experience through internship and field trip. Four, we expose you to our modern computer lab that facilitates hybrid learning. And five, we give you professional certifications whilst you train for your degree. In these areas, network engineering, software engineering, system analysis, user experience, data security, cyber security, among others. Now, all these initiatives are to ensure that our graduates thrive when they find themselves in the world of work. And we have graduates who have found themselves in destinations such as Bank of Africa, Accountants General's Department, Ghana Commercial Bank, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, among others.
My name is Hilda Dasa, a proud alumna of Heritage Christian College from the Department of Informatics, where I studied Bachelor of Science in Information Technology. The department is powered by a remarkable team of dedicated faculty who made my learning experience exceptional. Their dedication to excellence truly sets Heritage apart. The program content and the courses I learned has prepared me for the job market in the well-sought-after field of IT. I am so proud to have been part of the Heritage community as a student who has been equipped with entrepreneurial skills as well.
I invite you to enroll today, and you won't regret you did.